Okay, welcome to another edition of Tickle Trunk of Horrors. You're here with Timothy and Alexandria.
Hello, everybody.
And so today we have a horror legend, an absolute legend from the movie My Bloody Valentine. His name is Paul Kelman. Very interesting interview we did with him. A lot of people just know him from My Bloody Valentine. However, he was in several other films, one of them being the comedy Gas. And he did theater, or I should say plays, before he actually got into films. And so he's also an author. He's getting ready to release a book of poetry. And so it was a really, really good interview with Paul.
And My Bloody Valentine is really a horror cult classic, and a lot of you may or may not know that it was really the original film was cut down 8 or 9 minutes, and there's some train of thought that there was 2 reasons why the film was cut down, because of Friday the 13th coming out, and there was a huge backlash with that, and also the murder of John Lennon in 1980. They say those 2 items may have come into play on why the original film was edited or cut down those 8 or 9 minutes.
Well, people have their opinions, and I don't believe that is the reason why. We know that people have put out those are the reasons why. However, this film was released in 1981, and we know that the rating board at that time, I mean, good God, look at what they did to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All the films, the horror films of that day, they were just really, really censoring a lot of the horror films, which today, in 2021, this stuff would actually be normal and just on regular television. And, you know, so, yeah, the rating board was really heavily censoring stuff at that time. They cut out the 9 minutes, and Paul says it was 8 minutes that they ended up putting back into the film. My guess on why they kept the 1 extra minute out, if that was the case, would be because they're going to save that for their 50th year anniversary and then slide that back in. I don't know. That's my opinion.
But it was a great interview with Paul Kelman, a well-rounded individual that has acted in theater, the movies. He's now going to release his first poetry book, and then he has an interest, you'll listen, in Knights Templar as well.
Yeah, and in this interview, you'll hear him talk about a ghost encounter. He's had several ghost encounters over the years, and it's interesting to know that prior to ever becoming a horror legend, he was actually a horror fan and would spend all nights in the theaters watching horror films. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting interview. Whether you like horror or you don't like horror, I'm assuming since you're listening to our show, it's called Tickle Trunk of Horrors, that you are a horror fan. This is still a great interview. And so we're going to give him a call now. Okay, we have Paul Kelman, actor, and I've seen on the internet that it also says that you're a writer, Paul, and you're best known for your film My Bloody Valentine. I believe it was a 1981 film, and you've also been in several other films. It's listed on your IMDb page as Gas, Black Rose, and even it was a television series. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of it. But welcome to the show, Paul.
Oh, glad to be here.
Yeah. How's everything out in Toronto doing?
Oh, things are good. Where everybody's coping with the COVID. Yeah, things are good.
Yeah, I see.
It's beautiful weather here.
That's great. I see you posted a picture online where you wearing some type of, it looks like an oxygen deal. Are you doing okay with your health?
No, my health's compromised. I've got lung problems.
Oh, okay.
So I use oxygen.
Yeah. Well, sorry to hear that. But
well, that's what happens.
What I kind of like to ask you before we go into the most famous film I would say that you've been in, My Bloody Valentine, I kind of like to ask you a question of what out of all the sets that you worked on, what was your favorite set? Not really your favorite role, but what was your favorite set to be on?
I don't know. I guess it has to be My Bloody Valentine.
What was it like
That was,
doing the film Gas? Was I know that you had.
yeah, gas was a gas. What can I say? It was a failed movie as a comedy, because it was a comedy, so it's supposed to be a comedy, but it didn't really work out very well. However, there were some amazing actors, and the sets on Gas were pretty wild. We blew up a gas station in the middle of Montreal for the film. That was pretty spectacular, and there were all kinds of major stunts in the film because we used it was a lot of cars and a lot of car chases. And yeah, I had a few accidents that weren't in the script.
Can you,
I drove everything from a 18-wheeler to a funeral car.
oh
And
wow!
so it was yeah, it was quite the experience. I'm really not a driver.
Yeah, can you tell us about some of the accidents? Like, what was the worst one you had on the set?
Oh no, the worst one I had was on My Bloody Valentine.
Which,
Uh,
what
yeah,
happened?
well, it's hard to say really, but I hit something and it looked like it was a rock in the ground, and it was probably underneath. It was just the tip of a rock, tip of a boulder. So it was the rock didn't move when I hit it. So instead of the rock moving, the car had to move, and the car jumped up in the air, and I hit somebody. One of the extras. It wasn't who wasn't supposed to be where he was, and then I crashed into a fence. After that, it was pretty bad. The car was pretty well wrecked, and but I was okay. I had a seatbelt on.
Awesome.
Uh,
We
yeah, I had a bit of a problem with my back afterwards. I still have it today after all these years. It still plagues me. But yeah, that was a bad accident. The other ones in Gas were little things like almost taking out a camera. One time when I was backing up, and another time when I was driving towards it. Just stuff that you just can't tell what it's going to be like until it actually happens. But I didn't wreck. I didn't wreck anything. I didn't hurt any cars or any cameras or any people. Not in Gas anyway.
Right. Paul, it's Alexandria. It says you're a published writer, a playwright. What is the most recent thing that you've written, so a lot of the listeners may want to check out some of your writing, Paul?
Yeah. No, there's nothing. There's nothing recent. It's all the plays are from when I was doing theater, which is like a long time ago. That was before My Bloody Valentine. There's about 5 or 6 plays. They're not. I think that they were published. I don't know if they're still in publication. And they were co-authors. I co-wrote several plays with other actors. And let me think for a second. No, there's nothing. There's nothing. I'm working right now on a book of poetry.
Oh, that's great.
I'm almost finished it.
That is awesome.
And then I'm starting a book that I started writing. Who knows?
So what you going to call your book of poetry? Bloody Valentine?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't thought of it yet.
Now, one of the sets that we didn't touch base on is the film Black Rose. How was your experience on that?
Oh, that was nothing. I just did a cameo role. They wanted to use my name to push the movie, so they gave me a little role to do. And it was nothing really. I played this. Have you seen it? No.
I haven't seen that film, Paul. No.
It's not. It's Black Roses actually. It's not Black Rose.
Okay.
And yeah, I play the father of this girl who turns out to be a monster, and she kills me one day. That's it. Just in the living room where she decides to kill me, and she kills me, and that's my role. It's about 10 seconds long.
Well, I can tell you, I was born in the 70s and I grew up in the 80s, and one of my favorite all-time horror films was My Bloody Valentine. And I love the original over the remake. And there was a remake that starred Jensen Ackles from the show Supernatural. And the remake had an interesting twist because in the original film, your character was suspected originally, I think, as being the killer, but it turned out it was somebody else. Now, in the remake, your character actually is the killer. He plays the killer.
Really?
Yeah. So you hadn't seen the remake?
I have it. The digital whatever, the DVD of it. But no, I've never looked at it.
Yes, it's pretty good, but it doesn't compare to the original My Bloody Valentine for several reasons. The original My Bloody Valentine, it really has that old school horror film from that era.
Right.
Even though it was released in '81, you get a very late '70s feel from it, and also the plot twist at the end of the remake. I kind of didn't like that they did it that way, but it still was a good film. But there's nothing like the original My Bloody Valentine. I mean, it's still today one of a cult following. It has a cult following. It's definitely a cult classic and a great film.
Yeah, it's funny because when it first came out, it didn't show up at the box office hardly at all, and I think for the first 10 years. It just kind of was, asleep. And then for some reason, people started liking it and watching it, and all of a sudden, it started to take off. And it's got, as you say, this cult following over the last 30, 40 years. It's really it certainly surprised me, I'll tell you.
Well, it didn't lose money. I mean, it doubled its budget, which was great. A lot of the original films that later on that don't do well initially, but later on become cult followings, they actually lose money. But with your film, My Bloody Valentine, they actually doubled the budget money, which was great. And I think the reason why it took off is a lot of us that grew up in the '80s, like myself, when I was younger and I was preteen and then teen in the late '80s. Stores like Blockbuster, like when we'd go in and look for horror films, you'd have like Blockbuster there, and My Bloody Valentine would be in there, and that really helped, I think, give it a whole new audience as well. And then you had a lot of television play on the film. Now, originally, I listened to an interview where a lot of the scenes had to be cut because they were considered too graphic, I guess. And so that may have initially been a downfall for the film initially as well.
Well, that's what they said.
I think so.
Yeah. Because they say that there is a lot of censorship, and apparently 9 minutes were cut out by the Motion Picture Association of America due to what they say the amount of violence and gore. And it's also interesting that in 2009, Lionsgate licensed the home media rights to the film, and they actually, with 3 minutes of additional footage, were restored of that 9 minutes.
I thought it was 8 minutes was restored. No,
it could be 8 or 9. I just read a reference where it said 9 minutes. You could be right, Paul.
Yeah. The thing about that was originally the guys who had made the film. What they got was the censor board said, yeah, you leave it the way it is, but you have to have an X rating. And they didn't want an X rating because that limited the audience that was going to see it. So they cut out the stuff that the censor board, said it was the X part. So that's the way it came out. And then later on, much later on, they restored the missing minutes, and then the director's cut came out. Have you seen that or?
No, I have not seen the director's cut, and I kind of want to see that director's cut, because I know that they did the same thing to the Friday the 13th films. They cut out a lot of the film's footage for the same reason. And I went back and here's what I find happened. When I went back and I watched the films with Friday the 13th with the added footage, I actually did not like the film as much with that added footage. It changed the whole feel of the film. And because I seen it originally how it was, I loved the film, and then they added this stuff, and it really gave it a different feel to it. And but I would be interested in watching the director's cut of My Bloody Valentine. And out of all the scenes they cut out, I was shocked. In the 80s, actually, on television, they showed that heart in that box that was delivered, and that kind of that was one of the scenes that they didn't cut out. And so that was pretty interesting that they chose to leave that one in.
It's a cow's heart.
Oh, it was,
so you know.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I did not know if it was a prop, a fake heart, or actually a real heart. So it was actually a real cow's heart then.
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
You can kind of see it as it kind of jiggles a little.
Yeah, it looked pretty real.
We had some fun with some of the horror stuff, and some of it's really funny, like when you know what it really is that you're doing. Happy, the bartender, he's the one who tries to rig a thing to scare the kids. I don't know if you remember that, but he tries to rig a thing where there's an axe, a pickaxe, that comes up with a kind of an arm that he puts together and comes down when you open the door, and you open the door and the axe comes down on you.
Yeah.
It's not a real axe. So he was going, he was playing with it and laughing, and this is going to scare the kids really a lot. And then all of a sudden he gets axed for real. And the axe goes through his skull and through his eyeball. And the eyeball hangs off the edge of the pickaxe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so there I am. We're sitting there talking, and we're having a break. Maybe it was a lunch break or something. And he's sitting there holding the axe that's that's attached to his head with the eyeball hanging out.
Oh, wow.
And I'm talking to him, and it was really real too. It was so funny. God, he looked funny, especially since we were just talking and eating. Just nonchalant with an axe through his head.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff like that. I thought that the special effects were really well done.
Oh.
Like the cave-in in the mine, and all the murder, all the killing scenes.
Now that was a real coal mine that y'all were filming in. Was actually a real coal mine
In Nova Scotia.
in Nova Scotia, I believe.
Sydney Mines?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia. It was the mine wasn't operating anymore. It was really a museum mine at that point. It's still a real mine, but there's no mining going on. And the funny thing about that was they were so excited that we were going to shoot in Sydney Mines, and they knew we were going to shoot in the mine, and the mine was really dirty and grotty and everything. So they thought they'd really clean it up and paint it and everything to make it look nice, which is the exact opposite of what we wanted.
Right.
So when we got there, it was all neatly painted and everything else, and they had to take all that off and redo it and make it dirty again to make it look like a mine.
God.
So and then there were sections of the mine that we worked in. The thing about that mine is that it's 600 feet beneath the ocean floor.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's one of two mines in North America that are mines that are beneath the ocean floor.
Yeah.
And so going down there each day, you had to take the elevator, which was basically a large cage, which is what the miners used to go down. And you could only get like 6 people in the cage, and it took like, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 12 minutes to get from the top down to the bottom, which is a long time for an elevator.
Absolutely.
And so we could only take so many at a time. And then we had one day we had a problem. There's always the potential for heat to develop in the mine, and where it's enough heat maybe to cause a spark. And if that happens, there's always a volume of gas down there, and that you can, it'll explode if you did have a spark. So we had a problem where they realized that there was a buildup of gas in the mine, and that we had to get out until they degassed it, I guess.
Right.
So to get out, you've got to. They had to figure out who goes out first, and like if it takes like 8 to 12 minutes to go down, it also takes 8 to 12 minutes to go up. So you can only go 5 or 6 people at a time. Plus you've got cameras and everything else. All that has to go up. So the whole thing was, it's going to take like over 30 minutes for everybody to vacate the mine.
That's right.
That's 30 minutes where the gas has built up and is building up more. So it really becomes like a real scary deal. You don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And it only happened the one time, so that was good. But yeah, you really get the feel of being a miner when that happens.
No kidding.
Now, with that being said, real quick, I noticed that in some of the scenes when they're using the pickaxe, you see sparks coming off the wall.
You saw that, eh?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, the guy was coming at me, and we're both on the one side of the carts, right, that are going, and so yeah, he's coming at me, and I notice that every time he hits it, there's a spark.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, this is really bad, really bad.
I thought y'all planned that. That wasn't planned.
No, that wasn't planned at all.
Oh wow.
It was really stupid because what they did is they didn't want to risk my getting hurt with a real pickaxe. So they gave the guy a pickaxe that was made out of fiberglass. Okay?
Right.
But the fiberglass doesn't have any weight hardly compared to a real pickaxe. So when he swings it, it really goes. And the fiberglass tip is so sharp that when he hit the wall with it, it sparked. And it was just like crazy all the way around. Every time he swung at me, I was really scared that he'd get me. And the next thing I know, too, is before that, he's hitting the wall and it's sparking all over the place. Now I'm thinking about, gas and everything else. It was really something. And then we jump onto the train, and, and he jumps on top of me with a pickaxe. And I try to fight him off with I don't know, I can't remember, a shovel, I think. And like, yeah, I mean, he's really swinging at me, and it's so lethal, that because it's going so fast, and it's so light. I just can imagine, this thing cratering my skull.
Yeah, because I always watching that movie, I always thought them sparks. I always told myself, "Wow, that's cool," but I had no idea that was unintentional.
Definitely not cool. Yeah. There were a lot of things like that in the film. We were lucky. Sometimes things happen, but some of the scenes, well, like for example, when we're climbing the ladders, we're looking for I can't remember, Axel, I think, because he fell into the water or something. And we're climbing all over the place and everything. And they have like water pouring down on us while it's happening, and grease, and the ladder is all greased up, and it's made of metal. And so we're really slipping and sliding on these metal rungs on a 15-foot ladder. And it's just really crazy. I mean, some of the things that they put us through that were real, like they really were real.
Right.
They looked real and they felt real, and they were just as dangerous. You know.
Exactly.
That's my favorite.
Go ahead.
My favorite scene is with Ellen Udy. She's the one who gets the shower head through her mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought that was really, she did two scenes that were really, really, really good. The one where all the uniforms come flying down from the ceiling, and she's running around, and these things are falling in front of her, and she's screaming and getting all scared, and then the guy comes along and grabs her and puts her onto the shower head, and all the water and blood comes pouring out. That was really good. That was really well done, especially with the dummy.
Right.
They had all the dummies for all the kids who got killed were made in somewhere in Hollywood, and then they have to go down there and get fitted up, and get I don't know what you call it, but they make a mold of what they look like.
Right, like a casting of what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they make the dummies. It was that was what I thought.
Yeah, and I think what you're just saying, Paul, is I read something that Ernest Leo Grand of the New York Daily News noted, and he made reference to the film having similarity to other slasher films of the time, but I think he describes it very well, where he says, and I quote, "Movies like this are designed to make you jump, scream, hide your eyes, hug your date, and talk with glee about the movie." And I think you were having a lot of that stuff behind the scenes that people, I mean, they were getting it when they were watching the film, but you guys had a lot of that stuff happening, like you're describing, filming it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that most people don't know is that we did not know who the murderer was. They didn't tell us until the day we shot it. The day we shot that Axel was unmasked as the murderer.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that until we shot that. So the whole time we were told for all of us to act as if perhaps we were the murderer.
Yeah.
So that the audience would have to try to guess who. We would have to guess who too at the same time, because we didn't know either.
Yeah.
Now, that coming out of the 70s, and it was released in 81. What year did you actually show up for?
80.
1980. So there was a lot of younger people there on the set. Was there a lot of drinking and partying going on during that time, or was everybody pretty serious about it?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, really. There was Keith Knight, myself, and my wife at the time. We did a lot of drinking and partying. And then at lunchtime, they had this Moosehead beer.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And so Moosehead beer donated something like 20 or 25 cases.
Oh my God.
Moosehead beer.
Wow.
It was a wall of cases, and so this is what we were drinking all the time. Like, we drank it for lunch, we drank it for supper, we drank it, But if I had my choice, I didn't drink it, because it was just awful.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Did you actually like it? But you brought up the food. Were they feeding y'all pretty good on the set?
Well, that's the thing too. The food was way too much. And it was like, miners' food, I guess. In that, lots of meat and potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? I think I gained about 15 or 20 pounds, and that turned out to be really bad because in one scene in the bar, I'm sitting at the bar, and the scene before was something I shot early on, so I was thin, and then I'm in the bar, which is like the next day kind of thing, and what do you know? But I got a stomach, and
It was from all the beer.
So they phoned me up after the shoot and everything. I was back in Toronto, and they phoned me up from Montreal, and they said, "You got to come down to Montreal." And I said, "What for?" And they said, "Well, we have to reshoot the scene in the bar where we've got you, and you look like you gained about 20 pounds in 2 minutes. So we had to fix that." I went, "Okay." So they had to make the whole set of the bar and everything else somewhere in Montreal, and we went there and redid the scene just because of my belly.
Now let me ask you this:
Yeah.
were you a horror fan prior to doing My Bloody Valentine yourself?
Well, when I was younger, I used to go like on the weekends. I lived in Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa's the capital of Canada, and I used to go to the all-night Horrorama and watch all the films by Karloff, Boris Karloff, and those guys.
Bela Lugosi, yeah.
Bela Lugosi and who's the guy that played the werewolf?
Lon Chaney.
Who else am I thinking of?
Lon Chaney.
Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, well, I did see those too. That's a little earlier, but all the Hammer films that they were doing that were horror.
Christopher Lee, Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Peter Cushing.
Yeah. That's it. Price and Lee.
Yeah.
They've made so many films. So we would sit there, and at that time you could smoke in the theater, and so we would sit up in the balcony and watch the shows and with popcorn and cigarettes and Coke, and we'd be there from like midnight to 6 in the morning. So you could see I don't know how many films, maybe 3 films in a row, and that was like Saturday and Sunday. So I did that for a long time. As long as they had the Horrorama, I'd be there. But that was earlier on. I was in like high school at that point, and I wasn't really too much into the horror thing. I was just too busy working all the time.
What kind of work did you do prior to becoming an actor?
What kind of what?
Work did you do prior to becoming an actor?
Well, I didn't. I didn't really.
So you were just pretty much an actor then?
I was I was in high school. I was acting already.
Oh yeah.
And I even did some professional stuff. And then out of high school, I went to university and I got a degree in acting. And and then I started acting almost right away there. And I pretty well worked like all the time up until I did a couple of other things after My Bloody Valentine, and then I packed it in.
What made you quit?
Let's see. What made me quit? Well, that's a really tough question. I don't know if I can answer that, but yeah, I did anyway.
Yeah.
And I went into. I was a designer in the theater as well as an actor. So I had after My Bloody Valentine, I had a couple of fashion stores, kind of like funky stuff,
Right.
funky fashion, and yeah, it was right in the with like a boutique right in the fashion district in Toronto, and I had 2 stores there, and that was really fun for a few years. And then we had to pack that in because they sold the block that my store was in,
Oh,
and it
geez.
was really tough for us to change it and get into another store.
Right.
So we had to pack it in, and it was really a drag. Big Hong Kong money came in and just bought up the whole block.
Yeah, that's not. Is there now in your personal life? Is there? I know that you post a lot of things about rescue animals. Do you have rescue animals yourself? Because I know a lot of celebrities like to, help out with different kind of charities or different kind of
Yeah.
organizations. Do you have one that's near and dear to your heart?
Well, the Toronto Wildlife Center is one that I give money to on a monthly basis. They save wild animals. Um, yeah, we had a cat. She was the sweetest thing, and for about 17 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
she, yeah, unfortunately, we lost her. She had to be put down
Yes.
last year.
Sorry to hear that.
She
That's.
was, yeah, it was really made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
But so we haven't replaced her or anything. I'm too old anyway to start with a new animal. We have thought of a rescue, like if it's an older. Oh yeah, she was a rescue herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Anyway, but no, we haven't done that. I don't think we are. It's just we're too old to take on a new. It's not fair to the animal. You know.
Well, let me
I
ask
mean,
you
I
this
could.
question. A little bit off the topic of films. I don't know if in your entire lifespan so far, if you've ever had any spiritual encounters like hauntings or encounters like that at all. Have you ever in your life seen what you think may be a ghost or a spirit?
How come you asked that? I wonder.
I asked that because I like see this podcast show is on a channel called Tickle Chunk of Horrors. However,
Yeah.
we actually do paranormal research, and that's one of the things that we do. So we like to ask our guests if they've ever had any type of experience like that.
Well, okay. I have actually. I don't know how to tell you about it. Okay, here there was okay. I was working in the theater. I had a girlfriend, and I was sharing a flat with another guy. He had his own room and everything, but we shared the bathroom. He had his own kitchen. I had my own kitchen, and he was across the hall. Well, he was a little off. This guy, he was not all okay in the head, and he decided to kill himself. So
Ooh.
he bought a gun, a rifle, and blew his head off across the hall.
Jeez.
Okay, fine. So he's dead, and blah blah blah. And so a couple of days later, my girlfriend and I are in bed, and we're just doing nothing. And she's kind of getting tired, and she's we're both kind of going to sleep, and something happens, and she feels something, and it kind of freaks her out because it's something on her.
Wow.
And, yeah, so then she kind of like jumps up and everything, and then so what we do is we see in the corner of the room there's this kind of ball of light,
Right.
and it's not like glowing like really brightly. It's a dull kind of light, and it's about the size of I don't know, a small beach ball, and yeah, and it's just kind of hovering there, and then it kind of swoops down and tries to, I don't know what its intention was on her, but that really freaks her out.
No kidding. Wow.
And so then it was that next morning we decided we're leaving. I'm leaving because it was my apartment. I'm not staying here anymore. So that was that encounter, and I don't know what happened afterwards, but that was the reason that we left. And I have seen periodically I've seen things. When I was young, I saw a ghost too, and I've had experiences. I don't know if you call them spiritual, but what do you call it? Out of body experience.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I've had that when I was much younger, like when I was around, I don't know, 20. Around 20. There was one summer I had several of those, and it was 1970 actually, I remember. And that was very, very, very strange. Because you could see things quite clearly, and you were outside your body, and you were in the room, and then you could slid around.
Right.
I almost went through the ceiling and looked outside. I mean, it was that kind of thing. Very, very strange experience.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
most people have had encounters. A lot of people won't talk about them for whatever reason. I mean, but we definitely encourage people to talk about it because it's something that is very real. And we know we've had a lot of encounters ourselves. A lot of people call us up and ask us to come do locations and things of that nature. And
Oh yeah.
and we've got a lot of stuff on film and camera, and let the people listening know, like, what is your hobbies this day? I know you said that you were writing poetry, which is great. And whenever you do release that book, Alexandria herself wrote a book and it hit #1 on Amazon. Then she wrote another book and it hit #1. But if you do go ahead and release it, we'd love to have you come back on and just solely talk about the book. But what other hobbies are you currently partaking in these days?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, have you ever heard of the Knights Templar?
Actually, you know what, Paul? I have Freemason in my family. I'm actually part of the Order of the Eastern Star, so I've read extensively on Knights Templar and a lot of the Masonic orders, just out of interest because my family's in Freemasonry. So you hit on a topic that's sort of a passion of mine, and I even have an old gold, I'm assuming it's from a box that was my grandfather's, that has a key, and I wear that around. I used to wear it around as a necklace, but it became too valuable. So I just thought that's a topic that I'm interested. So maybe explain to our listeners how that topic is interest to you.
Well, I love design, and I love costumes,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been reading a lot about the Knights Templar, and I just have this fascination with them
Right.
and about their history, and not just their history, but the history of how their costumes, for example, and their weaponry.
Right.
So I've gone ahead. I bought what you call a replica sword of the Knights Templar. It's a replica, but it's a real sword.
Right.
Like it's sharp. I could cut off somebody's head or something with it.
Uh-huh.
And it's really big. It's a broadsword, and they call it the Faith Keeper. But it's got its own name. It's quite amazing. You'd have to see it, though. I think I published it. I think I published it a picture of it on my Facebook page. And then I also have the, like, it goes with the sword. I have the dagger, which is also a real dagger as well.
Right.
And it's like a little, it looks like, it's like a mini of of the big sword.
Right.
And it has on the end, on the pommel, it has the Templar, I don't know what you call it, like the Templar seal.
Yeah, the seal. Yeah.
Yeah, and which is very cool. And then I have the Templar tunic, and the cloak is on its way, and pretty well. And I have the helmet, this helmet that they wore, one of the two helmets. What? Oh yeah, and I've got the chainmail coif, which is the headpiece.
Wow.
And the other the body chainmail is on its way. So, but when I'm finished, I'll have I should have a replica of a Knights Templar with a what do you call it, a dummy, a mannequin.
Now, do you have a picture of that we might can show the listeners, like what you're talking about? I mean, Alexandria, she wears chainmail and it's permanently on her, so to speak. Like, it doesn't have a clasp you can take it off or anything. So she's very, very, very much into that type of stuff.
Yeah, you can buy chainmail that's made out of aluminum, which is much lighter. Unfortunately, the cloth that I bought turned out to be steel, and it weighs a ton. You know.
Yeah.
I put it on, and I'm falling to the floor.
Yeah. The chainmail that I wear is made out of stainless steel, so I like I said, it's on me all the time, so it doesn't rust, from doing dishes or showering. So yeah, but
But let me ask you this, because I'm looking at the picture that you posted on social media. Can we put that into the show here so people can just see the sword, the dagger?
Sure, of course.
Awesome. And well, Paul, I don't know if we missed anything. I know we did a last interview with you a couple of years ago, but that was on a different channel. We're on a new channel now, and I'll send you the link to it. And your old interview is still on the other channel, but I'm trying to get this channel beefed up, and I wanted to have you back on the show for this channel as well. And
what?
Go ahead.
What interview was that? You're talking about the other interview.
Oh, we interviewed you a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember. It might have been back in 2018 or 19. I can't remember the year, but I sent you the link before to that interview. We actually had an interview with you a couple of years ago.
Huh. No, well, I don't know. I don't remember. You'd think I remember with your accent.
Yeah, because I remember you asked me a question I didn't understand in Messenger. You said, what happened to you in 2018? I was thinking, well, we did the interview a couple of years ago, but I did send you the link to it, and I don't know if you had a chance to even listen to that show, but I do know that on this new channel that we're on now, you're definitely in one of my favorite films of all time, My Bloody Valentine, and I said, hey, we got to get Paul Kelman back on the show. And, yeah, you might not have never seen that first one, I guess. I sent you the link.
That's cool. I'll go look for it.
Yeah.
I must have listened to it. I mean, I always listen to, but some years though I'll do like a few interviews and I'll just get confused as to what is what. And other years I only do like one.
Yeah, this was about 3 years ago, and actually what happened was we put it on our paranormal channel. When we started interviewing people from horror films, we were just putting it on our paranormal channel, and but then it took off so much that we said, well, we need to create a separate channel just for this podcast show instead of linking it in with our paranormal stuff. But however, your story, your spiritual encounter will definitely appeal to those listeners on the other channel as well. And so we'll probably share a clip of this interview on that channel just so they can hear just the ghost stuff. But then your full interview is going to be on the actual Tickle Chunk of Horrors. I'm going to send you the link to both videos. Okay, Paul, I appreciate it. And thank you for joining the show. It was awesome to have you back on.
Well, thanks for the two of you. We're a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you again, Paul. It's always a pleasure. You take care and stay safe.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.